persons who used to be a detainee and eventually left the country, the lawyer Robert Frishaw. He used to go to South Africa, and there he stayed most of the time with a former school friend of his, who at that time had been a very successful company executive, in fact, of the Ford Motor Corporation, which had a factory to assemble motor cars in South Africa. And so after he had been detained, I think he was the prominent one among the first detainees of 1978. And in fact, just to clarify something that I heard under Mr. Betsy's, during Mr. Betsy's deliberations, the panel asked, why couldn't you get lawyers, take to court? Unfortunately, we were not allowed any access to anybody outside the prison. Unlike when the first group of detainees, when Mr. Frishaw was there, I think because Mr. Frishaw was a prominent lawyer, and he immediately made arrangements with his colleagues, Mr. Valabji, to take the matter to court, and that forced the court invited, under the, I think, I'm not a legal person, but habeas corpus rule, that the court said, yes, we want to see these people. So they were brought down there, not to be judged, but simply to show that they're still alive. In our case, this was not allowed. The two bishops, because many families went to see them and asked them to find out what is happening to our relatives, they asked for permission, they were refused. So nobody outside the prison system was allowed to have contact with us. So we were not allowed to. Now, to go back to the mercenary thing, Mr. Frishaw, after he came out of detention, he went to live in South Africa, not as an exile, I think because he was a migrant, like a sort of voluntary exile kind of thing. He would go to South Africa and meet with his classmate, and while there, that's what I heard from him, he discussed what can be done to remove the regime. And the classmate said, well, my neighbor can help you. Oh, yes. My neighbor is the most famous mercenary, Mr. Mike Hoare. So that is how the Mike Hoare connection came about. So when Chow ended up in South Africa as an exile, the reason he went to South Africa was because his parents were living there. I don't think he was not given political asylum in South Africa, but he was allowed to live there because of his parents. And so when Frishaw arrived in South Africa and introduced Gerard to Mike Hoare. Now, Mike Hoare already had a mission to Seychelles before we were released from prison. In 1980, for the 5th of June celebration, he came to Seychelles to do a kind of reconnaissance. And he took pictures of the military parades and as well as other things, meet with certain people. So he was involved in a potential intervention right even before we had left Seychelles.
That was organized by people that were in the Seychelles,
No.
or exiles?
South Africa, yes. Mr. Frishaw was the principal guy. And also, of course, we got information from various people locally to feed him with information. The only problem that nothing happened before was because there was no money. It was only when we started activities after our time in exile, we managed to raise some money. We actually raised $200,000. And the mercenaries, well, Michael accepted that as a down payment in return for payment afterwards on successful completion. Now, the money was given to us by a foreign investor in Seychelles who had a major investment. But nobody found out about him because everything was done in secret. The money was deposited in a secret bank account in Switzerland before it was transferred to South Africa to be used. So this is why I say that my core connection was purely accidental. It was not sort of shopping around kind of thing. It just happened to be coinciding with the fact that the gentleman in South Africa knew him, and he was a next door neighbor.
Monsieur Chow, bonjour. Comment ça va?
Bonjour.
Les plans l'attaque mercenaire contre au pays qui mène au ça à cause l'attaque mercenaire au plan pas connaître qui mène pour passer à cause pour servir pour un bonnes armes et pour un fighting so il y a l'impact sur le pays so les autres plans je t'imagine tout ça par l'impact du pays à cause d'autres plans du gouvernement le régime qui était au pouvoir mais seulement là on fait l'attaque probablement on peut target le gouvernement mais il a un collateral effect.
Mercenaires qui viennent à cause il y en a plus que 100 soldats tanzaniens dans ces îles. Le régime c'est illégal. As far as I'm concerned, le régime qui vient au pouvoir d'un parti est illégal. Parce que c'est à cause de type en pays pas de force, de type en contrôle toutes les choses qui existaient. Et existait par vertu qu'il y en a 100 soldats tanzaniens qui étaient mercenaires, parce que les autres ont payé pour venir ces îles. Et mercenaires qui viennent, c'est à cause pour prendre contrôle, pour ces empêcher les Tanzaniens interférer dans la politique qu'ils ont. En réalité, moi, je cause avec Mike Hall avant l'État-major ici d'Afrique. Je me rappelle, c'est moi ça tient un joke, parce que quand il m'a dit ça tient un joke, dira devant moi, il dit, mais là on a traité, what will pour nous? Mike Hall dit non. Il dit, si moi t'as appelé, moi donne un revolver, où sont envie de lui, what will, moi n'a pas rien pour faire avec ça, moi. Maman dit saoulé, faire ci pour dire nous capables de retirer ce régime le pouvoir. Et les autres target si bon Tanzaniens. En réalité, ils ont 17 Tanzaniens. Bon Tanzaniens qui peut rester dans un baraque qui fait la Pointe-Larry dans la case M. TRNUC. Comme il y a mon connaît, il y en a 17 N. Ils fait bon cercueil, retourne Tanzania, plywood et mon rappel lit dans la nation parce que moi l'Angleterre je dis ça bon quelque chose que tu peux faire c'est bon médicament que tu peux envoyer Tanzanie sortir Seychelles. Après tu as un garçon qui est né Tanzania, qui grandit Tanzania, tu peux rester Tanzania à l'époque. À cause il y a aussi parce qu'il a resté Seychelles, son papa tient un nightclub. Après coup d'état tout quelque chose tout business tombé tout bonnes affaires. Moi joindre l'Angleterre. Après, il peut passer pour l'Amérique, il dit, moi tu connais, bon du monde qui tient le Seychelles, bon l'armée. Il dit, je dis, moi 17 autres qui sont morts. C'est moi ça mène quand il a annoncé Tanzania. So, mercenaires, il a juste pour peste Tanzania, bon soldat tanzanien était fait. Pas il a pour tout c'est loi. En réalité, les autres arrivent à l'aéroport. Tout le monde qui est là dans l'aéroport, qui gagne mettre comme un espèce de prisonnier arrival lounge. Et première chose qui mercenaire, tu dis, tu fais, chaque fois il gagne 10 monde, il dit, ou c'est loi? Oui ou bien non. À cause, à présent, si c'est loi, n'a pas aucun problème. Si tu es Tanzanien, tu peux prendre action, pas tout il est nécessairement, mais peut-être faire si qui pas capable d'interférer avec ça. Et parmi ces bandits qui sont en prison, qui sont gagnés, bon, comme prisonnier, ça joue, c'est M. Lucas, qui est dans le civil, il est à l'aéroport pour recevoir des gens. Il dit que tu dis, pas 10 autres pour dire, moi, soldat. Il est là, il est dans l'arrêt normalement. Après, il y a ça, incident côté d'un soldat qui a tué. Je dis, moi, mais c'est en tas. Ça qui est mercenaire, tu dis, nous, après, subsequent pour ça. Nous ne besoin pas d'autres paroles, nous pas qu'on dit tout. Parce que les mercenaires quittent CCL par rapport dans Air India, dans le milieu, la nuit, comme si de grand matin. In fine, aller. Beaucoup de gens ne pas connaissent les mercenaires, in fine, aller. À cause de la négociation qui fait entre Micro avec le commissionnaire la police d'Inspilé, qui liaise avec le président René, et ils disent que l'armée n'a pas besoin, si aucun que sur l'avion, les avions allaient à cause d'un bon passager, parce que l'avion est en l'escale, il n'est pas supposé débarquer passager CCL. Seulement, après, bon, mercenaires sont impossible pour dire hijack ça avion. Ce n'est pas hijack ça avion. Négocier, ça capitaine séparé pour prendre les autres, à cause de aussi, tu as envie de sortir. Lui aussi, tu as envie de sortir tout son bon soldat, et son bon passager pour aller. Par exemple, il prend 5 heures de temps pour arriver sur Durban. So, les bons mercenaires puis attaquent Control Tower parce que non pas mercenaires, les bons soldats tanzaniens qui sont restés encore au camp, puis attaquent Control Tower, premier endroit, pour faire dislodge bon mercenaires. Et ça bon petit tank BRDM, c'est me appelé qui amène bon soldat là-dedans là, qui descend et viennent. Là arrive pour écouter Control Tower, ça mercenaire, il a compté, nous, pas contre, c'est vrai. Il y en a des autres, tu as une taille dans le coin là-bas, tu as une descente après un rigole, tu as un peu la boue en bas. Les certains qui arrêtent, ils prennent un peu la boue, ils viennent, ils bas ça vite, parce que c'est un petit bout de vite qu'ils sont supposés voir quand tu peux aller. Par exemple, tape en l'air, ils disent sorti. Tu as supposé on a 3 autres comme si quoi 3 autres. C'est moi 2 autres qui sortent dehors. Alors ils demandent c'est loi oui ok. Alors là-bas on va emmener nous en bas côte. Bon les autres immunités. Le président il n'a pas encore personne. Il dit non. Mais il paraît ça qui tout a compté. Ça Antal il décide de pas sortir rester là dedans cassette. Et plus tard nous il dit pour dire les bonnes forces par les Tanzaniens, ils commencent à attaquer. Là, tu arrives prêt avec ça, transport. Sa garçon a décidé, parce que tu n'arrives un peu de temps qu'on passe, décidé pour sortir dans son affaire, mais c'est pas tu connais, et tu t'appliques une balle. C'est ça qui m'a entendu. Mon pas nous en mettant encore un bandit monde qui a dit, comme si vraiment à cause d'une gagne tout. C'est moi, nous avons un rapport avec les bandits mercenaires qui sont tournés. Et même dans le cas où les mercenaires poursuivent, pas seulement ça issue, tout un soldat. Ils poursuivent juste pour question, à cause d'une attaque, c'est celle. Seulement, de pas d'une attaque, c'est celle. Ils viennent juste pour subduer les Tanzaniens à cause de l'arrangement que nous tenons, ça m'a dit pour la première fois dans le public. Nous tenons l'arrangement avec le gouvernement Kenya. Les mercenaires qui pour prendre contrôle airport. Kenya qui pour envoyer 100 military police pour venir mettre comme tu contrôles le pays. Et une première mission qu'ils ont supposé venir faire, c'est pour tout le Tanzanien, soldats tanzaniens, mais d'autres avions retournent avec Dar es Salaam. Et ça, c'est l'arrangement qui nous fait en secret avec le gouvernement tanzanien. Seulement, tu n'as pas l'intention pour faire l'attaque au pays, parce que ça, pour moi personnellement, le gouvernement est illégal. Moi, un citoyen qui a perdu mon droit à vivre dans mon propre pays, alors mon duty pour faire quelque chose, pour tirer ce régime qui empêche ces lois pour vivre dans son propre pays.
Ça veut dire que l'intention tu peux remplacer Tanzanie par le Kenya.
Ça dit pour non, Kenya tu peux juste le commencement li. Pour les nous pour faire essayer quelque chose, n'a pas aucune bonne quelque chose qui arrive. Après tu peux aller Kenya parce que nous la police écoute ça monsieur qui tu viens là monsieur son qualité caractère ou pour dire ça bonne garde qui tu là à l'époque, tu as un caractère, tu bon du monde qui tu connais bien autres l'ouvrage. C'est très professionnel. Nous avons confiance dans eux autres. Nous croyons autres. Nous les retournons au système qui était avant. Après faire élection encore. Seulement, quand il y a un petit peu venu à cause pour nous, parce que y a l'armée aussi localement ici. Nous avons besoin de 10 armes à l'armée parce que nous avons employé pour supporter le régime. Pas de employé pour faire pour la guerre contre external forces, pour supporter le régime.
Une question, mon quoi, d'après mon analyse historique, mon quoi, coup d'État est basé sur assumptions. Am I correct?
Coup d'État, c'est quoi?
C'est basé sur assumptions. Nous pouvons faire ça, si pas, si comme ça, non, à cause. Les autres qui viennent, tu n'as pas aucun cesse-là avec les autres.
Coup d'État, coup d'État.
Non,
mercenaire.
Tu n'as pas aucun cesse-là qui est venu, juste Sud-Africain qui est venu, non?
Oui, parce que nous n'avons pas ces lois qui ont la guerre. Tout le monde, celle du monde qui apprend la guerre dans l'armée, c'est celle. Tu as ces lois qui sont venues, nous avons 10 nous, Nairobi, tu peux espérer pour nous entrer ces celles.
Quel est le jeu?
Nous sommes Nairobi, Hazo.
Nairobi basé là-bas, je peux espérer pour que ça va nous Kenya.
Non, tu peux venir tout seul dans l'autre avion qui nous finit là et tout. Bon, Kenya, tu peux venir après eux.
Okay. Non, ça va la question après, le public peut écouter.
Non, je comprends.
Nous peut écrire l'histoire.
Moi, je connais.
Nous peut revoir l'histoire, c'est celle. Il y a l'information qui peut, elle, les générations pour comprendre l'histoire.
Kenyans, tu peux venir eux-mêmes, de la communication, comme il y a pour un code, pour cause avec Control Tower, avec Mike Hawk, ce bon monde. Nous ne pas involvés là-dedans. Nous avons seulement un groupe de monde qui peut descendre. Nous n'avons pas ni armes, ni rien. C'est seulement, nous avons des gens qui peuvent rester ici d'Afrique. Ils sont d'accord pour venir, pour les arriver, ils ne pas faire quelque chose, ils n'ont pas de responsabilité pour faire. Seulement, nous peux dépendre de l'autre bon mercenaire noble, sub pompe contrôle. Après, bon Kenyan, c'est pour renforcer, pour faire ci, pour dire tout quelque chose, la paix est arrivée.
Merci.
Bonjour, M. Chow. Dès que je peux écouter, mon petit peu comme si passionné avec ces histoires. Par exemple, dans un petit peu stand-by Kenya, pour espérer go ahead pour venir cesser. Et dans un apport pour dire ça, l'attaque mercenaire pas un succès. Quelle est votre réaction? Qu'est-ce que tu fais après?
Désappointé.
Qu'est-ce que tu fais après?
Nous tournons contre nous. Nous tournons. Chacun tourne
et quelque chose qui finit comme moi-même.
Fini, ça même, oui.
Can I just ask? Oh, sorry.
Carry on.
Yeah, were the South Africans also complicit? Did the South African authorities know about this?
Okay.
Oh.
The only complicit or implication of the South African government was to give their approval. The Gerard Waro met with the people in the Defense Department and got their go ahead. The only thing the South Africans did was to provide the guns, the guns for the mercenaries. These were delivered to Mike Ho at his house. And but the go ahead for them to, they didn't even take off from South Africa. They took off from Swaziland because the aircraft they used was Air Swazi, which was on a regular scheduled flight to Seychelles. Now, in terms of South Africa, the government, in terms of the special committee of the cabinet responsible for, remember they were at war with the ex-colonies, the various countries up there. They agreed, they agreed to give the ammunition. They didn't sort of agree to sponsor the mercenaries. That was not their remit. And in fact, some of the mercenaries recruited originally to come were special forces soldiers working for the South African Defense Forces. And their commander, they were all ex-Rhodesian soldiers. Their commander, when he realized quite a few of them were going to join that outfit, asked the government of South Africa to call these people back because he didn't want to use his soldiers because he was in charge of them. He didn't want his soldiers to be in a mission that he's not in charge. And he couldn't convince Mike Hoare to let him be in charge of the operation. So as a result, Mike Hoare had to recruit other people. And he was doing that when I came down to Johannesburg, to Durban. I found out that that's what they were doing. But the mercenaries departed from Swaziland. And the aircraft had to make a refueling stop in the Comoros Island. In there, because originally the plan was that the entire aircraft was going to be filled. It wasn't chartered, it was a normal scheduled flight, but it was going to be filled by the mercenaries. And because he had fewer people than he anticipated, when they got to the Comoros Island, there was a French lady who wanted to have a flight to Seychelles. So she was accommodated among the mercenaries. And unfortunately, she was carrying flowers. So when she passed by the customs, she was the third before last of all the passengers. The others had already gone out. And when the customs saw the flowers, they intercepted it, and it was not allowed. Live flowers were not allowed at that time for diversity, whatever, security reasons. And so the customs people decided to search the bags of the last two people. That's how they found the gun. So if it wasn't for her, maybe things would have been different, a different history.
But if you had succeeded, who was going to form the government?
Mr. Mankam.
Mr. Mankam.
Yes, because we had, although he didn't know in detail what we were doing, he didn't even know when we were doing it. The only thing we asked him, I said, we would like you to make a tape to endorse us, because we would be in the forefront. And he agreed. He said, I'll do it, yeah. But he wasn't aware that this was going to happen so soon. And this is the tape that was played on the radio here after they discovered remnants of it. Mike Hoare tried to burn the tapes, but not all of it got burned, so they were able to put pieces together.
In the time of preparation, Mr. Chow, for the mercenaries to have a blessing of the South African government, was there any agreement between your group and the South African government?
No.
No.
No. Actually, the contact with the South African government was made through one of the mercenaries who ended up being caught in Seychelles, Dolinchek. Now, the gentleman was, in South Africa in those days, they had an intelligence organization called BOSS. And they were spread in all the provinces of South Africa to make sure that the ANC insurgency doesn't develop. So their job was to find out who was doing what and report back to the state security. They were not part of the defense organization. So he was a personal friend of Mike Hoare, and Mike Hoare sort of introduced him to us, saying that he could help us make contact with the South African government. And I think it was through his reports that the Defense Intelligence Agency or the Defense Intelligence Agency wanted to take control of the event, because BOSS was a state security, civilian security intelligence organization, unlike the ones for the Defense Department. So JR paid a visit to Pretoria, where he was introduced to various people, senior generals, and they took these to the government for approval. But the only thing they offered was arms, nothing else.
Mm.
And most of the arms did not end up in Seychelles.
I think you put light today on the mysterious leaflet Mr. Lewis was sharing with us earlier, because he said he was not aware of the origin of the leaflets. What was the content of the leaflets? Because this brought a lot of reflection and actions.
Well, to be honest with you, I don't know if you've been reading the opposition newspapers and magazines. You must have read some of them. Most of it is scandal of the system against. That's exactly what we were doing. We were actually publicizing the things that the regime didn't want people to know. In actual fact, we called our newspaper, our movement was called Mouvement pour la Résistance. The acronym was MPR.
Mm.
The reason we called it this way, because we were seeking the endorsement of the French government. We had contact with the intelligence people in Seychelles. We found out that they were not happy with what was happening in Seychelles, although France gave all the endorsement. France was the first country to recognize the new regime after the coup. The ambassador was all for it. And Dr. Ferrari was invited to Paris soon after, and where he was received by a gentleman called Mr. Doué, and said, thank you for returning the Seychelles to the French. And but the local, the French ambassador of the coup d'etat had gone by the time we were doing activities. The new ambassador, they were not happy with what was going on. And the French had a military vessel in Seychelles manned by 5 or 6 special forces, French special forces. And I think it was called Topaz. And their job was to just be there in case, to protect French interests. And we were in contact with these people, especially the guy that was in charge of the group. And they were training with the new military, the new SPLA, and doing all sorts of mock attacks and things. And they told us that it's an easy thing to do because we always manage to beat them in the mock attacks. So we were trying to entice them, help getting the French government to agree to let them help us to overthrow the regime. I know that has not been said before. So we were invited to a meeting at the Quai d'Orsay. The Giscard d'Estaing was the president at that time, to meet with the African Affairs advisor, his guy. I was supposed to go as one of the delegates, but unfortunately I couldn't leave the business at that time. It was crucial, so somebody else went in my place. And Robert Fisher, who was in Australia, also went there. So we had some sort of contact with the French government. So we were working on a plan with the French forces. In fact, on the day we were arrested, we were supposed to have dinner with that gentleman at a private house, not in public, at a private house. Coincidentally, this scuppered the whole thing. But what happened was, as a result of the fact that the French police advisor was discovered in the office of Gérard Wao when he was arrested, I think the next day, 2 days later, he was arrested. And Mr. René asked the French government to withdraw him, otherwise he would be deported. The French government said no. The French government said, take him to court, convict him, then we would withdraw and you can deport him, otherwise we won't accept this. So that was a bit of a problem with, but all the time, we didn't know about this immediately, but all the time we were already in detention.
Monsieur Paul, Chow, excusez-moi. Moi, je dis le papier ici, là où tu remplis un papier côté Comité national de l'Assemblée, où tu mettais, moi, tu as content, président René avec président Michel, et fait public apologie. Am I right? Pour le papier ici. Yes. Ça dit qu'on l'Assemblée.
Well, le président René, il est mort, alors peut-être pas faire politique. Le président Michel, oui.
Mon question pas encore
ça
fini.
compte, oui.
Tu demandais ça?
Pour ça qui passait.
Oui, pour ça qui passait. Et deuxième point où tu demandais aucune forme de compensation. Bon, aujourd'hui, on peut demander là où finit expose tout ça dans l'opinion. Tu commences les conciliations nationales, le temps c'est Mancam, 1991, 1992, tout ça qui dit commencement un processus national. Aujourd'hui, là où finit causer le tout ça, qui ou l'opinion de la réconciliation nationale?
Tout le monde pour réconciliation nationale. Ensemble avec M. Mancam. En réalité, peut-être ça c'est un problème politique pour nous, à cause d'un certain nombre de partis où une réconciliation. Même là où senti, pas les réconciliations du lait. Parce que je trouve sa commission immense comme la cour qui pose bon monde, qui pas de l'intention ça. Moi, pour moi, nous avons besoin de réconciliation. Parce que bon monde qui supporte M. René, pas responsable pour ça que M. René fait. Ça aime que nous, et que M. Mancam, nous voulons faire l'attaque, le supporter M. René. Nous avons réalisé pour dire, nous arrivons dans une situation comme ça. Premièrement, M. René, c'est un politicien normal, légitime, avant le coup d'État. Alors, il était un supporter déjà. À cause de lui, qui tient ça, je suis content de lui. Mais, les multipartis tournent. Là, nous faisons la guerre dans le parti unique, nous faisons la guerre pour tirer, à cause qu'il n'y a pas aucune autre façon pour sans pays, sur pas tirer le pouvoir. Mais seulement, là, nous acceptons les multipartis, ce que nous voulons faire, c'est qu'il faudrait nous convaincre du monde pour voter pour nous capables de faire quelque chose que nous voulons faire. Et peut-être d'un côté, l'opposition, pas jamais gagné ça vote à cause, il y en a, tu crois pour dire, si ou promettre du monde pour tirer rancune, son supporter qui ne gagne quand les bénéfices avec le système. Il aussi quoi pour dire, vous posez un tirer rancune l'oli tout. Mais il pas sa question parce que le moment où on a demandé quantité de fois, là on peut faire politique, qui pour faire que ça bande du monde qui ne fait quelque chose mal dans le pays, comme si l'autre côté, moi je dis ça. Nous ne sommes pas capables de servir une revanche politique entre un parti et l'autre parti. Seulement si on a ces lois qui sentit une gagne, par exemple, nous pouvons faire là, qui une gagne affectée par un coup d'État. Il y avait une demande sur la justice. Et donc, il y a toute l'opportunité pour les gagner sur la justice. Et bon, du monde qui fait, l'autorité pour besoin faire ça comment une investigation qui un citoyen demande lui. C'est ça, bon, du monde qui besoin demander. Nous, comme leaders politiques, nous ne pouvons pas demander avec les autres du monde, ça sans pour finir. Demain, l'autre du monde pour demander les mêmes affaires. Et nous pouvons continuer à faire ça. C'est ça qui m'a croit ça. Et pour une bonne occasion, même si il y en a certains du monde qui parlent de causer, comme c'est l'autre côté. Ce qui est pour le plus important, c'est que tout le monde est capable de dire ça qui passe là-dedans. Et mettre toutes les choses en clair. il veut dire qu'après ça, tout ça, les autres du monde qui ne parlent pour venir faire face à la réalité, combien de pour c'est dans la société qui tout le monde connaît qu'ils ont fait.
Can I just ask a question? So, with the reintroduction of multi-party democracy, did that change life in the Seychelles?
Well, yes and no. Politically, it took a while because the party of Mr. Rene had full control of the country, so they won all the elections. Even though the Commonwealth had made special reference to delink the party from the state, they never did it. It was never done formally. And because they had control of the administrative levers of the country, they were able to dispense with patronage, which meant that they could win most of the elections. I remember campaigning up in the mountains, and some very poor, destitute people. Most of the people who were really poor and destitute, to my surprise, were people who had their own property, but they didn't have money because they were seen to be not in support of the party. They were never helped. So they would ask, "Can you help me to have some corrugated iron for the house?" So the only thing we could say was, when we win, we will do so. The next person who comes over from the ruling party, as soon as she mentioned the corrugated iron, is delivered immediately. So you don't expect her to vote for me because the other side is delivering immediately, and I can only promise. I remember up in Lignol, an elderly gentleman was standing on a rock, and we were coming up. And he used to support the party of Mr. Mancom before. And so he said, "Well, I see all of you coming up to talk to us." He said, "You will not win anything." I said, "Why?" "You will never have enough money to buy us." He said that very openly to us. He said, "That's the reason why I'm there, because I'm waiting for a house." He was living in temporary housing at that time. So the reason why on this level, this didn't change very much. It took progressively time for it to change. But economically, even though the country was going through a period of economic crisis, which the IMF had pointed out as far back as 1987. In 1987, the IMF report forecasted a currency crisis by 1991. I remember when I got a copy of that IMF report, which was always secret. But I got a copy, in fact, ironically, through Dr. Ferrari, who was in Kenya at that time. He managed to get a copy because of his connections in terms of UN offices. When I read what the IMF was saying, I remember telling to my wife, because by 1989, we came to the conclusion while in exile that maybe we will never be able to go back to Seychelles soon. I said, "But I don't want to live in the cold climate of England. So let's go to South Africa and find out if we can move there, because it's better, you can live outdoors and that compared to England." But when I read the IMF report, and I said to her, I said, "Yeah, we're going to go back by 1991. She said, "You must be crazy." I said, "Because Mr. Rene will never accept to change his policies to suit what the IMF, that's in his character, the man. He would never have done that." But economically, progressively, because of freedom, people were able to do things without hindrance, and the rule of law started to be implemented. There were no sort of detentions without trial, all the threats and everything. I think progressively the economy changed. And it was a question of time that the system had to, as people became more involved in the economic activities, it was much more difficult for the system to control the population. And also we were lucky because when Mr. Rene, after the defeat of the first referendum, after he lost the first, he announced that the next Constitutional Commission would be live, or as live on television. That opened up a whole, Pandora's box. I mean, for the first time, Mr. Rene was addressed directly to his face of all the shortcomings. And the most prominent person to do this, who was in our delegation, is now the Chief Justice. She was the most famous member of the commission because she was accusing Mr. Rene directly. Unfortunately, I've been asking SBC to at least reproduce that, put that. So after the Constitutional Commission, when the first National Assembly came into being, the broadcasting of proceedings continued. So to that extent, in a way, it was a sort of spiritual kind of, how should I say, open up the feelings of everybody. We were able to address people directly. It wasn't controlled by the system. So progressively, this changed the way things were done on the island.
The reason why I ask is because some of our complainants maybe allege, a victimization that happened in the 1980s, but see that continuing for many, many years into 2000, well into the 2000s, that because of their political allegiance, that they have been victimized and they continue to be victimized as a result of that, not getting the same fair go because they're not with the regime.
Oh yes, that's true. It happened to me too. But the victimization was surreptitious. It wasn't as open as during the one-party state. As I said, because they had control of the levers of power, they were able to exercise, if they had a choice between giving you something you deserve and somebody else, and they had this eknu pa eknu concept, which everybody's talking about, they use that as a lever. But there also, some of these victimizations were done by officials themselves on their own, as opposed to direction from the political people. And I myself was victimized during my business times. I had a business issue with an insurance company, the only insurance company on the island. And suddenly the insurance company decided to stop doing business with me because there was an issue of debt. The company was taken to court to claim to recover the debt. And I admitted, yes, we do have a debt with you, like all the other persons in the insurance business had this problem. I said, but I'll make arrangement to pay you. On the day that I was supposed to appear to court, I went to the judge. I won't name him now, but I'll name him later. I said, okay. I said, we know we have that debt, but because the insurance company had stopped doing business with us, there is no way we can repay. So we've decided to liquidate the company, voluntary liquidation. And we went to court. And when he saw that, they said, well, okay, so when you finish your liquidation, come to us, we'll decide what to do. That was on a Friday. Next Monday, one of the lawyers in my building, Mrs. Amesbury, was coming back for lunch. She said to me, well, you have a case in court this afternoon. I said, what case? He said, well, against you and the State Assurance Corporation. I said, no, we're not supposed to have it. They were supposed to wait until the court had determine our voluntary liquidation. She said, in any case, because I will be there for a case in the magistrate's court, I will go up there and represent you. So when she was going up the steps of the Supreme Court, she bumped into the lawyer for the state assurance coming down, and he said, oh, let's go back because I'm going to represent the company, First International, FIFCO. And the lawyer said, no, it's finished. The judge has issued a warrant to have him arrested. Okay. That was just a commercial debt. I was just a director being asked to represent the company. So she said, no, let's go back and see the judge. Okay, so the judge rescinded the arrest warrant. Later on, the judge still issued an arrest warrant for me, for some reason. Whenever the case was going to appear before him, it's a commercial debt thing, nothing to do with a personal thing. One morning at 6 o'clock, the police arrived and said, we've come to take you to cell to take you to court. I said, why do you need to do that? I can go to court. He said, but there's an arrest warrant issued by the judge. So I said, okay, so I'll get ready. And I went down to the police headquarters. As I approached the desk of the lady officer in charge, and I said, what is happening? She gave orders to a police officer. She said, search him and put him in jail. So, fortunately, a corporal came from the other side. I think he pretended he was passing by to go and do something. I said, Mr. Chow, why are you here? I said, I don't know. They've been asked to. They want to put me in jail. In jail for what? So that they could take me to court at 8:30 in the morning. And he said, no, you stay there until 8:30, until I give the orders. So the lady was a little bit embarrassed because she had been told to do this. Yes. So the case went on, and the judgment was taken against me personally, not the company. Under jurisprudence, directors are not responsible for the debt of a company, but I was made to be responsible for that debt. And I had decided I would not pay, even if I had to go to prison. But unfortunately, at that time, we had made political alliance with another party, and they were worried that this would come out because people wouldn't understand what was going on. And now, so I decided to, I raised the money, I paid off, and even though we appealed on the basis that this was not normal decisions of court in terms of debts of companies, it went to the Court of Appeal, and the person who was given the case was a foreign judge, and from Africa, unfortunately, and he agreed with the judge. And the judge in question was Mr. Karunakaran.
When was that, Mr. Chow?
That was in 2006, because we had elections 2006, and I was with the Democratic Party forming an alliance with the SNP at that time.
Mr. Chow, President Mankam was seen when multi-party was reinstated in the Seychelles as the savior of Seychelles when he was coming back.
Yes.
And
by the opposition.
By the opposition. And before the election, there were talks, and there was a meeting between President René and also President Mankam. In a former hearing here, we heard from a witness here that he had a problem and he went to see Mr. Mankam in his house at Glacis in the north. And he said that he felt that Mr. Mankam has changed. Was there any sort of agreement prior to the election and which sort of forced Mr. Mankam to change his way of being and his way of thinking, so that his own supporters at the time, they were questioning his integrity?
Okay. I don't know what he means by change. I've known Mr. Mankam since 1968, when I went to him to volunteer to work for the Democratic Party. During the 70s, I was very close to him. He had never changed. He was always for peace, tranquility, and quiet. He wouldn't, even if you did something to him, and then you came back and said, "Can you help me?" he would do that. Now, the reason why people said he changed or he lost support was because the coup d'etat had affected so many people. And basically what they expected of Mr. Mankam to do was come and exact a revenge for them. The same opinion being expressed by on this commission, that you expected to be the judge of what happened, you know. So Mankam, as I said, Mr. Rene won all the elections. So Mankam had no power to do anything. I remember before we even had the elections, I had 5 people coming to me at my house to say, this is help us to resolve this issue. I said, how can we help you to resolve? We are in the opposition. Right? And so I remember when, because 10 or 12,000 people came to the airport to meet him. So some supporters were saying that was an opportunity for him to overthrow the system. But it wasn't true. Mr. Mankam, give him his due. Many things that he did, and sometimes I disagreed with the position he took. And then I found out in the end he was right by the way things ended up. And, but he told us very clearly, he said, if I ordered you to go out and overthrow Mr. Rene, I would not be able to live in Seychelles because I don't have a home in Seychelles. In fact, when he arrived, he had no home. His home had been taken over. He had to stay in a hotel. So he said, it's better that I get along with Mr. Rene in order to ensure that he doesn't do the worst things that he could do against you, the supporters, or people who were against him. He sympathized with the feelings that there was, and that is what he's told Mr. Rene before, in front of me. He said, look, people hate you, my supporters hate you. They would like me to take a position, exact revenge on you, but this will not help the country. So you have to help me to help the situation. And he also, one of the things he used to tell me, he said, look, if you have someone and he's got something, something on his shirt and it doesn't look very good, you don't shout from the back of the room, hey, you've got this thing on your shirt, it's not good. You approach him, you become friends. By the way, yeah, there's something on there, maybe you should change it because it doesn't work. He said, and he told me this is the philosophy he's always adopted. And he said, if I'm close to Rene, I can get him to do the things. Not close in the sense of Van Lames or selling, but at least have some understanding with him so that he can convince him. There were many things that, because I was there for most of the meetings at the early days, there were a number of very contentious political issues that we discussed privately in order to ensure that a resolution was possible without Mr. Rene feeling embarrassed or so that he wouldn't do it. If we don't bring it to the attention of the public, he would then make the right decision, which he has done on a number of occasions. Yeah. So, but it's not the sort of thing you can advertise for people to understand.
I think in the public, in the eyes of the public, when Mr. Mankam came back, some time later, all his property was reinstated to him, or most of them were reinstated to him. And those who believed in him were expecting him sort of to negotiate, to fight their cases so that they can receive back their own property. And to what I understood, they felt that their leader has betrayed them. I don't know whether it's too big a word in saying betray.
I know, I've heard that before, but I was there. I was inside. First of all, if you listen to the deliberations of the Constitutional Commission, you would know that it was Mr. Mankam who challenged Mr. Rene publicly. He said, we must have a clause in the Constitution that says all properties must be returned or compensation paid. And Mr. Rene agreed, and that's in the Constitution. Mr. Mankam only got his property back after the Constitution came into force. And I know many people who brought their case to him, supporters of Mr. Rene before. Okay? Today people are fighting over Grand Police. But the people who own all the properties in Grand Police used to support Mr. Rene during the previous era. And they came to him and said, help us get our property back. I remember before me, I saw many cases where it was discussed. But Mr. Rene was the one running the country. So he agreed, yes, he will give it back, but the bureaucratic sort of thing to do was, but Mr. Mankam had nowhere to go. The only property he himself had was where his house is. All the other properties were, he was an heir like everybody else, like all the other members of the family. So he didn't, he fought for them as well, but he fought for himself first, so he could build his house, he could repossess his personal property. But nobody had used his property, so he was able to get it back. Whereas at La Misère, where the property where the army had taken over to put a radar was his property. So he couldn't get it back. And Mr. Rene agreed to give him this equivalent plot, which was next door and empty. Not empty, belonged to the government. I think it was the property that they gave to Archbishop Makarios, but he decided not to accept that.
That's the one at Mont Josephine.
Oh, Josephine, that's the one, yes. So I know a lot of people said, well, he took his property, I didn't get mine. I said, but you have the right to get it. Although Mr. Rene put a 1-year time frame to make claims, the Supreme Court overruled this. The Supreme Court, because there were some people from Australia, by the time they got to Seychelles to make claims and everything, the year had passed. So the Supreme Court said, the 1 year doesn't apply. It's the moment you know that you had that right to do it and you are able to exercise that right is what the 1 year sort of, so in a way there was many places. But I know people, some of his supporters accuse him of that, but some people who have accused him of that, I was there when the file was brought forward and we discussed compensation. And not just compensation, but return the property. But sometimes, like Mr. Mankam's own mother, who inherited almost 500 acres of land at Glacis all the way up to the Lagog Dam, they took that entire property. Quite a good portion of it were up near the dam, were divided and sold to people to build their houses. So when he claimed that property, he said, just give the family back the rest. The houses, he's not interested even in the compensation from the rest and everything, as long as the family, the heirs, could get the rest of the property. And I used to remonstrate him. I said, but you have been accused that you're working only for yourself, but you never announced that publicly, that the land that was used to give people for their houses, you gave away that land to the detriment of his heirs. And some of them didn't agree, didn't like it, but he said it was easier, as long as we got back as much as we can, we can't disrupt other people who have. His intention was quite right, but it's the method he did things. Sometimes people didn't like it, and
So after today, we continue the reconciliation process.
pardon?
Together the reconciliation process.
Yes, well, I was always one for reconciliation process, even though sometimes things were done against it from the other side. But I believe in reconciliation. And because I'd like to live in a peaceful Seychelles. I'd like to see everybody in Seychelles happy. Happy in the sense that, they could live their lives freely, they could undertake things for the improvement of their family. And this has always been my principle. And as I said, the mercenary wasn't there to destroy the country, it was only to sort of neutralize the forces that could prevent any change taking place. So I have no apology for that, because I lost all my freedom. I didn't even have a right to be in Seychelles at that time.
Well, thank you very much for your evidence. It's quite an extraordinary story, right? A businessman. Started off as a businessman, and then what you've been involved in and what you've been through. We were just chatting. We will probably like to call you back at some point, because there may be other evidence that you can give us in relation to issues, including the assassination of Gerard Wawo.
Oh, yes.
So we would like to call you back.
Feel free.
Yeah, but for now, thank you so much. Thank you very much for coming forward voluntarily. We really appreciate that, and for giving us such a comprehensive picture of that period of time. And a very interesting life you've led. So we will adjourn now, and we will be back at 1 p.m. At 1 p.m. we will be going into closed session, and we will be in public session at 1:30. At 1:30 we'll be starting a new case, case 005, the Ball et al. Case, and we will dealing with the element concerning the disappearance of Hassan Ali.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Free to go.